Are there any questions?
And I want to ask about the risks we're seeing materialise at the Wiggins Island coal export terminal. How much are we likely to lose on Wiggins Island Stage 1 if Bandana and others cannot meet their take-or-pay commitments? Thank you.
We very much regret the situation that Bandana is in, but if you take an overall view of the market as we see it, we don't think there is any significant risk.
What impact will have on performance of the company due to IPCC recent report?
In relation to the IPCC report, can you explain that report to me, please?
I read in the Australian Financial Review this morning that our company has committed to buy back $500 million worth of shares and proceed with its Pilbara iron ore project, which will remove much of the excess capital that could have been deployed in any Galilee Basin infrastructure development.
It's too early to say when and where, and how much is going to be involved in that going forward. That one's probably a little way out. It's probably behind the Pilbara development.
I mean, the $3 billion that you would need for a 51% share in the GVK Alpha coal project is 30% of our market capitalisation, which seems like a large amount.
There's various ways of financing that, but you first of all got to have a project before you have to finance it.
I mean, that's the query as to how much will come off our balance sheet of that $3 billion.
Well, I don't know yet. I'll answer it as soon as I can.
You will be aware that there's a revised proposal current under assessment for land-based disposal of dredge spoil at Abbott Point, and that this proposal would dump spoil on the proposed Terminal 3 site, which we are about to become owners of. If dredge spoil is dumped on the site of the coal export terminal we are planning to build at Abbott Point, it will take some time before the land is suitable to build on, I believe. How long would you expect the delay to be, and would the delay affect our terms of purchase of the GVK rail and port project?
The spoil only hasn't been determined the precise emplacement. If at all, it's only a minor impact on Terminal 3, so there's no delay. As the proposals stand at the moment, we don't believe there'll be any delay to the development of Abbott Point Port.
Is that because you don't believe that the spoil will be dumped at the proposed site?
No, it's not that. Not that at all. It's that there's still a lot of planning to be done. The need for the expansion of Abbott Point has not been precisely determined in respect of the time in which it will be required. We're still in the relatively early stages of finalising all that detail.
I recently saw that Mr. JVK Reddy and his son Sanjay have been charged with cheating and forgery in India. My question is the company aware of these implications? And if these charges actually do get held, is Aurizon going to continue doing business with JVK Reddy?
We're aware of any such activity. I've never heard of it before, and Mr. Hockridge has not heard of it.
Yeah, I would suggest you actually look into that. It's in relation to the Mumbai airport. A whole bunch of officials were charged, including Sanjay and Mr. Reddy himself.
Well, we'll certainly look at the implications of what you've raised. Thank you for telling me.
Can I just ask a question? If this were to be found out, would the company still do business, is my question.
I'm not going to speculate on what we would do unless I know the precise nature of any allegations and their veracity.
I understand that GVK failed in September to meet the deadline for their final payment of $560 million to acquire the Alpha coal project from Hancock. At the time, they said they had no set deadline for making the final payment. The question, is it possible that Aurizon would formalize a joint venture agreement with GVK before they have fully paid for the project?
The short answer to that is no.
Chinese year-to-date coal consumption is currently down 1% compared with last year, and Chinese thermal coal imports are down 7% year on year. and they plan to reinstate coal import tariffs next year that would further squeeze the margins of coal imports. Is it still your view that Chinese thermal coal consumption will grow at 5% per year to 2020?
It's a matter that we will keep under constant review. If you want a general assessment of what we see in China going forward, we think that China will continue to grow at fairly substantial rates that are greater than what you see in the Western world at large, and that there will be opportunities created by such growth.
What if your forecast currently is wrong, and what will the impact on shareholders be in investing billions to create a project that has no market?
I understand the issues that you're raising. They're issues that are constantly discussed by our management team and with the board, and discussed by the board. We rely on a range of sources to assess needs, projections going forward. The National Energy Agency is a respectable organisation that does produce what are generally regarded as reliable figures, but like a lot of economic projections, they change from time to time.
The Alpha coal railway line crosses extensive floodplains from the mine to the proposed terminal at Abbott Point. With an increase in the frequency of severe flooding events as a result of human-induced climate change, it's inevitable at some point that rolling stock loaded with coal will be stranded. There's also a high risk that dust and contaminants from the coal will be spread across farmlands by these floodwaters. What liabilities are Aurizon exposed to in the event of flooding causing contamination of nearby farming properties?
We do a lot of work to ensure that our lines are not flooded. They are occasionally, and that's been well understood in the past, but we build most of our track to the 100-year flood standard, so the events are rare, and I think we've got a track record of cleaning up where there are incidents. We clean up pretty quickly.
I'm very, very glad to hear that, sir, but what additional costs are associated with needing to deal with the additional flooding risks that we are seeing and will continue to see over the next few decades?
I'm sorry, but that's about as long as a piece of string, and it depends exactly on what the incident is and how we need to respond to it. Can't answer. Sorry.
Rio Tinto is selling off its coal assets. BHP is ditching thermal coal in its spin-off corporation. Your projections have been consistently optimistic and consistently wrong. The question: how much of shareholders' money are you prepared to risk before you rationalize your projections and accept that thermal coal is in a structural decline?
We'll continue to assess what the trends are.
Phil Green of the UK Children's Investment Fund, a 5.8% fellow shareholder in the company, said that given the current weakness in coal pricing, we do not support investment in new large-scale coal projects like the Galilee Basin, and this is not a good use of shareholders' capital. Do you agree with this major shareholder?
It's interesting how those projections change from time to time, and we're not asking Mr. Green to support a substantial investment in coal today. And that's what we've been doing. I've seen about 80 shareholders this year on these very topics.
Thank you. Can I just ask to clarify with that, if you've been talking to any of those shareholders beyond Phil and his company about stranded risk? And also, you mentioned the billions of people around the world that need access to thermal coal. However, recently there's been a lot of coverage that actually the growth is in diversified renewables, and it's a much more accessible, equitable and just way of ensuring that we address energy poverty. So I'm just wondering if you're aware of those reports and if you're factoring that also into the continued growth for the company.
Yeah, thank you. I am aware of those reports. The company's aware of those reports, and we make an assessment of them. We support the growth of non-renewables. Of renewables. They just can't take up the space that's required to deliver power to the large people who are without it, the large group of people who are without it now in Asia. Can't do it. there's just not the capacity there for current technologies and developing technologies to take a significant place in supplying that coal and that power to people who need it. Not
So
there.
just to clarify, many of those reports actually look at how it can be provided by diversified renewables, and that we do have the technology available, and it's actually the social and political will to be engaged in that.
Well, that will be determined over time.